Thanks a lot for joining us today and talking about how KanBo accelerates adoption of Microsoft Teams. And so again, my name is Christian Buckley, and I've all advanced the slide here. You can see this. So the founder and CEO of KalabTalk. I'm also a 7-time Office Server and Services MVP. So long time in the SharePoint space and Office 365, and also very passionate about Microsoft Teams. So when I launched my company in January, day one, I started using Teams, and of course still a SharePoint user, and I use Yammer and kind of the full suite of Microsoft collaboration technology. But Teams really fits the size of my small organization. I've got 4 direct employees and project-based, a number of different customers that are out there. And so very excited when I learned that KanBo was doing work around integrating into Teams, and was happy to help share kind of that information, that news. Very quickly around KalabTalk, if you're not familiar with my work and the things that I'm doing out there. So we're an independent research technical marketing services company. In fact, for those that are familiar with the hybrid SharePoint research study that I did this spring, I actually have underway 4 different research projects, 3 of those with Microsoft that are happening now over the fall. So lots of things going on, but a number of my customers are some of the biggest, most recognized names certainly in the SharePoint ecosystem. So always happy to talk to organizations that are, especially within the Microsoft ecosystem, that need help with marketing. That's what I do. And Michael, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Michael Sobotkiewicz. I am the CEO of Object Connect, a company that was founded almost 15 years ago with the focus on enterprise software development. And almost 10 years ago, we came across SharePoint, and we found out that we would like to revolutionize it a little bit. And then 6 years ago, we came up with the idea to develop our own product on top of the Microsoft SharePoint, and now on the Microsoft ecosystem, also the cloud one. And this is where KanBo started, and this is where we are today, integrating deeply into the Microsoft ecosystem. And as the Teams came out, we loved it, and also wanted to be part of this story and extend its possibilities.
I think I met you shortly after that too. I'm trying to remember the exact year. Do we remember? Was it 2012 or 2013? But right around there that we connected online, but we met up in Berlin, and you showed me that early version of KanBo.
Yes. This was actually the beginning. This is where we started with SharePoint 2010. This is where we came together in a SharePoint user group in Berlin that was provided by Michael Grath back then. And this was the first time I showed you this, and this is like, oh my goodness, this is like the new Trello for Office.
Right. Yeah, and it just integrated into SharePoint, and it was very impressive. And I think people can still find this if they go to my blog out on Buckley Planet and search for KanBo. You can find that original post, which continues to drive traffic. It continues to be a popular post on the site. It's in the top 10 still.
Yes, it is.
Well, what I'm going to do here, Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you in a few minutes. But for those that are joining, I'm going to walk through and share a few slides, kind of a background of kind of where we are, and I'll talk about Microsoft Teams, some of the integrations there. And it's not a deep dive into everything that Teams is and does, because we want to keep this within a managed amount of time. But want to kind of set up the conversation to then jump into where KanBo is and what Michael's team has been able to do. So looking at kind of the evolution of collaboration, and for those here that are historically SharePoint customers, you're familiar with some of the steps that that Microsoft has gone through in the last couple of years. But I think what is interesting is organizations have matured, and a lot of them on the SharePoint platform. It's still the #1 intranet and document collaboration solution in the world. It's amazing. It's like 9 out of 10 of the Fortune 500 are on that. It's like 85% of the Fortune 5,000. It's just really the leading solution that's out there for a reason. I mean, it does a lot of things really well. However, one of the problems that has happened over the years is that organizations then try to force fit the same model of SharePoint, of collaboration, to organizations, to projects of every size, and are not taking into, historically have not taken into account the various cultural nuances of teams. And I often talk about, there's a book that it's not brand new, but it's called The Social Organization, where they talk about where collaboration works the best is when you have clarified the community you're trying to communicate with. So a community could be your entire organization. It could be your business unit or division. It could be your project team. It could be a manager and 3 direct reports. That's a community, but each of them are different size and have different needs. So you don't use the exact same tools and approach for all of those. And so finding the right tools, the ways to communicate and collaborate, and then also having that shared sense of purpose are critical. And so that's how I kind of encapsulate the cultural aspect of the technology. And getting that right, understanding what the right cultural fit is for your organization, is really the key to long-term success. Every technology that you deploy initially is going to ride that wave of it's new, people are excited to go out these new features, everybody's on board, and then 30, 45 days out, suddenly you see a sizable drop-off in adoption. And so that's where you need to make sure that what you've built is personalized, is integrated into the culture of that community, no matter what the size of the community is. And that's why SharePoint is still relevant, but where Microsoft Teams just tells a great story is because how Teams is leveraged by an organization or a project team of 5 people will be very different than how a 500-person organization might go in and use Teams. And it's really built for that smaller, Microsoft terms it as that high velocity team, which could be a project team or even a temporary team that's come together to resolve a ticket, a customer ticket, a specific problem. They may come together, form within a team, form a channel around that project, that initiative, or that customer, and have that conversation, pull in the various tools that are necessary to solve that problem, and then move forward. It's that, so you have this, traditionally this, which tool do I use when story, and that is becoming irrelevant in how you approach problem solving now, because you can go and select the best tool for that community, for that communication size, style, that culture, and be able to surface all of that through Teams. And just very quickly too, the Microsoft released the Office 365 groups, and I think that people are still somewhat confused as well. Is groups a product? Is it this architecture that's out there, this underlying kind of everything? Well, there's the Office 365, like the Outlook conversations aspect of groups. But at its core, you have this architectural detail. It's like having a security group that's across all the various products. And so what's powerful about the groups story for Microsoft is that Microsoft has the ability now to go and create net new products. And Power Apps is an example of that, and Teams is an example of that, where you already have this group that exists, and with a group, you have in Outlook, a mailbox, you've got OneDrive, you've got OneNote, a shared calendar, you have Skype, you've got all the permissions that are available, you've got a SharePoint team site, all of which are plugged into that group. So now when new products come out, like Teams, it plugs right into that group. So you say, well, now our group also has these teams, the ability to go and everybody that has access to this group now has access to this team, and we can use it as needed. Or for some users may say, look, I'm fine with using Outlook and OneDrive and our SharePoint site. I don't need to go in, have these high velocity conversations. And so you have the ability to kind of pick and choose the right tools to surface for your project or those community needs. So that's the story. That's how I explain how groups fits into all of these things. Now, of course, Microsoft Teams can span those different collaboration requirements, those nuances. You still have the ability to go in and use those Outlook groups. If you are an organization that's very email centric and you're comfortable with having the social conversation within that Outlook experience, you can do that. Others that are doing more external, that are these broader initiatives, maybe Yammer is where you're comfortable. You get a Yammer group that's part of the Office 365 group as well. Then you have SharePoint and all the latest news and updates there of now you have these community sites and the new hub sites, different ways of aggregating and sharing information within SharePoint that make it very powerful, which keep it very relevant within your organizations. But now you also have this, Teams is another tool. Now, how you can access all of those things within Teams is the number one way is through tabs. And so I'm actually using this today without having any more depth of integration with Kambo. So I have a team in Microsoft Teams that's set up for all of my customers. And I have channels for each of the individual customers. And then for each of those customers, I have a variety of different tools that I use. And so I use tabs to give me a quick jump over to that customer's website, maybe their social profiles, but I also have a Kambo board, which you'll learn about here in a minute, that is the project plan. So it's, if you're familiar with Trello or Microsoft has their planner capability, Kambo is like both of those on steroids. It's like 10x the capabilities there. But it allows me to be very focused and have and to discuss the various tasks that are happening in context to that customer within that channel within Teams. So I might have one or two of my employees that are working with one customer, and so they can easily jump over to that tab and look at the project plan and the tasks and the activities related to that customer, all within that channel within Teams. So what tabs do is allow you to very quickly and easily link to critical tools and services. Whether you're linking to a SharePoint site and just want to have an interface directly into the relevant library, you can do that through a tab. Or if it's a third-party external tool or solution, like using KanBo, or you want a link to that customer's website, or maybe there's a login to some proprietary home-built ticketing system, you can have that login page right there, again, in context to that channel. So it allows you to surface those tools and screens in context to that project or that customer. And it's just an easy, flexible way to put all of the tools that you need for that customer, for that project, all in one place. So that's what tabs are and can do. Then you have connectors. It's that next level of integration. This is where you're able to go and actually pull down information or have that third-party solution speak to what the conversation that's happening within a channel. So what it does is it pulls, or here it pushes that rich content over to Teams. So things like Trello, GitHub, Bing News, Twitter, things like that will feed into that conversation stream within that channel. So it's not that you have to go to a tab to find out what's happening. It's actually pushing relevant information right to that conversation so that you have that in context and allow people to go take action based on that information showing up. And so you can actually have notifications. It could actually prompt you if there's a change to that service that's pushing information down to that channel. You can actually set up notifications anytime it's relevant to you. You can jump over to that, and so it allows you to actually go in and complete tasks. And again, it's making this richer, more integrated solution by pushing information to that discussion. And then finally, you have bots. And I know there's some other ways of integrating, some deeper dev-centric ways of integrating into Microsoft Teams. But for the purposes of the end user and how you integrate, the third one and the one that probably gets the most airplay that's talked about is the bots. And the difference with the bots from the connector is that it's this two-way communication. So it allows you to go in and automate some of these manual tasks. And then it further enhances that conversation, that threaded discussion that's part of that channel. And so you think of it this way, it's this personal assistant. So you could go in and you activate the bot. All the bots are passive, meaning they're not just there unless they're set up and configured to do so. By default, they're passive, meaning that to activate them, you mention them just like you would an individual. Like if I were to send to prompt Michael to go take an action, I would Michael's profile name, or just start typing his name, click on that and say, hey, Michael, can you come take a look at this document I just added up? I need you to get your feedback before we move to the next step. Hit return. It will then, depending on how he set up his notifications, get prompted to, at least the next time that he logs into Microsoft Teams, to jump over to that conversation, see what's being asked here. Well, it's the same way with the bot. I can mention the T-bot, the Teams bot, for example, and say, hey, where do I find this information? Or how many users have accessed this channel here in the last 24 hours, to get an idea of who's live, who's participating within that tool, that discussion. And so it's able to go and start finding information, retrieving things, taking actions on your behalf without having to go out to those other sites, those other services. And so I think we're going to see, as Teams matures, more and more deeper integration, certainly within the Office 365 stack. So from Teams, from these bots, you'll be able to go in, pull information from SharePoint, from Office, from the Microsoft Graph, basically anything that is integrated into the Microsoft Graph and can be surfaced through the Graph, to find information and take actions. And that's really the future of running surveys, asking questions, provide quick status updates, all the things that bots can do to improve that user experience. And so the two bots that I mentioned, kind of the T-bot here, the difference between those is you've got the Who bot, it's that quick reference tool for engaging with team members, and then the T-bot is really going and finding out about using Teams itself. And certainly there are other bots that are available as Teams went live. Some of them are very simplistic, but you're going to see partners such as KanBo, and that's what Michael's going to share here shortly, but the deeper integrations into Teams. And so, Michael, I've talked enough here. I'm going to give you control here because we're going to walk through, and you're going to share two different demos. For those that are not familiar with KanBo, so Michael's going to provide kind of a quick run through of some of the basics of the way that KanBo works today. And then he's going to go through and show you what they've been doing for that deeper integration into Microsoft Teams, which is very exciting. And then I'll come back at the end and show you how you can learn more and certainly play with the technology, but to wrap up. So Michael, let me give you control, and let me give that
So you can see my screen, great. Okay, so as I would like to show off KanBo a little bit, what it is about and what is the concept behind. So it will be a very short presentation. So KanBo was built initially to capture the context of your work. So what we're seeing here is a card that is in this demo. Let's say this is a ticket, right? So it's some kind of a mail function here of a paper jam on the HP printer, and as I can see, it's in the doing status, so to speak, and it's in the board called issue tracking. I will come to this later. Just now concentrating on the card. So the card itself was built as something. Can you see my screen fully?
Yes.
Okay. The card was actually built to capture the context in a general manner. So what we came up with was, first of all, you have the card members, so people, and here what we have is that you can have the big one, which is the responsible person for this card, or for this task, whatever is depicted by the card. And then you have other users, which are so-called members. So the main issue we wanted to solve here is always to be aware who is responsible for that very card. So you can easily go here and change the responsible person, and so everybody knows who is actually the big toe at the food, right? So the next element that is commonly used are the tags, or labels. You can create as many you like per board, and then use them to categorize. For example, in this very example, you can categorize that. We categorize that as an end client, service, and network issue. Probably it's not a network issue, so I will remove it. Then we have, as next part, we have this dates section, and it's much richer than other products. So we can have a start date, a due date, but we can also have a custom date that you can add here. But what many customers like is this personal date. So it's actually a date where I can set a reminder on a certain card, and it only is visible to me because I am logged on here as Michael, as you can see. So it's only visible to me. If, for example, other user goes on the card, it's not visible to him because it's personal. Then the middle section is we call it the card activity stream, which actually captures the whole story of the card. So if I even go here and show all details, you see like this card was basically copied here and was done by Alexander. And then you see like the whole story, how the card evolved. It was moved through the lists and things changed on the card. And there are even 2 comments here. So what we find very important for businesses is to be able to see what was happening from the very beginning. Not only comments, but also mechanical changes, as we call them, like moving from status to status or assigning people or changing dates. Everything is captured, so you will never lose anything. And on the right-hand side, we have the so-called content part of the card, where you can store structured and unstructured information. Like, for example, you can add a note, you can add a task list, and you can add the documents and group the documents inside of groups, like for example here. So in this card, you can see, for example, I've got several tasks and spread it across 2 lists. And what I can do here, I can easily go ahead and assign those tasks inside of the card to certain users, and then even go ahead and even set due dates for those tasks. And as you can see, all here is captured as a history, and everyone can see who is responsible for which task and whether the tasks are done and so on. But this is more or less obvious. What you can also do is you can move those sections here around in order to have the most important stuff always at the top. If the card becomes bigger, you can also collapse the stuff so you don't see the details. So you see, this card was built to capture a lot of information and to have your way to structure it. So that's basically the idea of the card.
And Michael,
Yes.
I was going to say, one of the things I really like and I find myself using too is as I go and to complete a task and I outline, like, here's the steps, the things that I need to do to complete that task and make those assignments. Well, I find that there's a task that gets bigger than, this checklist, is the ability to also go take one of those items to validate may become its own card. I can, expand that to another standalone task and then create an action list to go and complete that. Yeah. So the convert to card, I've used that pretty frequently.
Yes, it is. It is handy because sometimes when you just brainstorm, and it's like a straight message, like your brain to the card, right? And then you just put the stuff, what's on your mind, and then you start sorting. Like, okay, I need to this move maybe to this list, and then you realize, like, oh my goodness, this one is becoming much bigger than I thought. So maybe we will convert it into a card. So all the information here, like the title, the assignment, and also the set date, is basically taken, and the card is created out of this. And also the card then has, so maybe I will just do it. I will just create, convert this to a card. Yes, I want. And when I click here, I see then that this new card was created in the same list, obviously, and I can see that this card was converted actually from another card. So even here, I see the whole story, how the things evolved, right? So again, the card itself is a container to capture context. In this very case, it's a ticket, but it can be anything. I will show you some boards with ideas. So now we will sort of zoom out and go on the board level. So this is a single context, right? So when we go here to issue tracking, then you see this is the board and the way how we envision it. So how is it built? So obviously on the left-hand side, you have the menu, but here you have the timeline. And it shows you already which card are due and how many cards are due on a certain day. So for example, here you've got on the 4th, so tomorrow we've got 2 cards due. You've got 1 card due here and so on. And if the colors indicate if they are coming soon or in the future. Here, of course, you've got the lists that you can do a lot of stuff on the list, like choose the color and archive all the cards and follow even a list and then move the list around. So everything what you would expect from a Kanban board. But what is new is that we also start displaying some statistics here. And as we will introduce custom fields to the cards, then you will be able to set formulas saying, like, for example, we have a custom field called budget, and then you could say, like, please show me the sum, the average. As you know it from SharePoint, you would show on here. You would show then the formula based on the cards that are in this list, and then of course everything what you would expect. Like, we have a new card here. We have our users, and I take just Clint Eastwood and put it as a responsible on the SQL backup because he's the guy for the SQL backup, and I can move stuff around as you would expect it. And this is actually
realize, Michael, because Clint is also my SQL guy, so that's great that you're able.
Oh, okay. I see. Because for SQL you need a very tough guy. So only Chuck Norris and Clint, are the main guys that can handle this kind of pressure.
Yeah,
so,
Chuck is my compliance guy. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That's a good choice. I mean, I like that. Yeah. So you see all the stuff you see here is drag and drop. And you can also sort of scroll and create new lists here, and this is basically what the board is about, right? So I think one of the most useful features in a board like that is to use filters, and then you can build your own filters saying, like, okay, I need to see all the network issues that are connected with Clint, so I can see, okay, they are none, so everything is cool. And maybe, do I have any network related issues? Yes, I have. Oh, now I see who is responsible. It's Gabrielle. And when I click on the 3, I can see who other people are also on this card. And I could even go ahead from here and make myself responsible, or even remove myself from the card so it disappears. So you see, a lot of stuff can be done just by drag and dropping and very quickly narrow down the stuff what you want to see. But I think what you also know from Planner is that you can switch dimensions. Like, you could show the same amount of data here by choosing the different view, which is called the user list view. So now you see tasks where people responsible are set, and you can see how many. For example, Alexander is now overloaded, so maybe we should then put some tasks on Annie and maybe some tasks on Christian. So actually, when you move cards here, you're actually reassigning the responsible people. And there's also a different board I would like to show you, which is here, and you can go. No, sorry, it's not that one. I think it's that one. Yes. So in this board, we use the lists for actually grouping kind of information. So we have a building 51. All our tenants are here. So if you access the card, then you see like this is probably the contract, and you know who. So Angelina is responsible for the tenant and so on. And here you see the list just grouping this kind of information. For example, our alarm system is actually connected through the API to KanBo, and every time there is an alarm, you see it here as a card. So if you follow this list, then you get notified, and so on. But you can also switch it to users. But we've got also here the possibility to create status, which is another dimension. And what you can do here, you can add new status like this, like this, for example, and give it a color and edit. But you can also move move it around. So it's fairly customizable dimension. And then you can go ahead and switch the dimension to status list. So now you see the same board through the eyes of status. So when you move now the cards around, so you're actually changing the status on the cards. And if you move the list around, then you're actually changing the order of the status in the cards. And in the card itself, it looks like this. So if you want to move it to the next status, you just click on here, or you can go back and so on. So you have a different dimension. Sometimes it's needed when you have a very complex processes or projects, and you cannot move cards between like the case here, where actually an alarm cannot be really moved to incident, or incident cannot be moved to plant maintenance. It rather stays here in this list, but the status changes. So that's what the power of the boards. And the last but not least, we've got also the KanBo home, where you can go and you can create groups of boards, and then move the groups as you like, so customize it, and then also move the boards between the groups, just to have it logically set for you, so you can better navigate. And we are just releasing a version where all of this is personalized. So if Chris is looking at the boards, he will have a different view and different sorts and different groups and different boards than me, because I use them differently.
Right. Yeah. I might have different priorities of what I'm working on, so my view might be different. And I'd say before we jump over to what you're doing with teams, I'd say probably the most powerful feature for me, and why we've talked about this for a couple of years now, but is the fact that the way that I'm using it with my organization, my 4 direct reports, is that, again, we have a channel set up for each of our customers. Each customer has then a KanBo board, is that I can go in and look at my view of tasks assigned to me from one place across all of those projects. So I can go look at an individual board and an individual customer and say, here's all the things that I'm doing for this customer. Or I can go and look at that my view of everything that's open, that's assigned to me across all of the boards which I'm a member of, which can be, and then looking at that in the calendar view, I know what I have to do, each day because of the way that I've set that up.
Yeah, that's you are talking about my board, obviously.
Right.
So
that portfolio view, which is really powerful.
Yes, I mean, it really is something where you can say, okay, this is actually my work stream. So I am now I am logged on as Michael, obviously. Now I can see what cards or what task I have to do. But you see, since this is your board, you can actually move stuff around and create lists like observing or waiting for others, and you just move the cards between them. And the movement here does not really move the cards in the actual board. So when I zoom in, so you see, for example, this Nokia battery comes from issue tracking and is actually in the internal tests right now. And I moved it for waiting for others, because I'm waiting here for someone. Like contact speakers is in the conference board, it's in doing. And in my lists, this card is here. If someone else also has this card in my board, he will probably have it somewhere else. So you are actually, with my board, have a tool to organize your own work stream. And whenever you enter the card, you're actually entering the real card and the real board. So this is the powerful element of KanBo, where you can switch the perspective from the perspective of a project, of a process,
right,
to your own perspective. And obviously, because we are in collaboration, we are living in the collaboration times, you can go ahead and say, like, I would like now to share this card with Clint, right? So when Clint clicks on my picture, like here, then he can click on my board and can see my cards. And probably and Alexander Kaiser just hasn't shared his my board with me, so I cannot view what he's working on. So sure, that's basically KanBo in very shortly explained.
And this is all for everyone watching. This is the capability today. I mean, this is how I'm currently leveraging KanBo inside of Microsoft Teams today. Already doing this. I have, as I've said, I have a channel set up for each of my customers. Each of those customers, I have a custom tab that points to the relevant board for that customer. So I can go into via any browser, I can just log into KanBo and see all of those. So I can see it via my phone. If I'm on the road, I'm going to one place to see that. But for my employees, the important part of this is that by going into that customer's channel within that team, they'll be able to see the board and the relevant tasks in context to everything else that's happening around that customer within that channel. And that's what we're talking about, is keeping all of these activities in context within Teams. And so, Michael, I'd love to see what you guys are doing, the deeper integrations into Teams.
Yeah, sure. So before I jump into that, I just want to mention that all the stuff that you see here is also available as an installation for on-premise with SharePoint. And we are very pleased to hear that Microsoft is continuing to ship SharePoint in 2019. And for some customers, this might also be very interesting to say, like, we love this functionality that you see here, but we are currently not ready for the cloud, or maybe only partially ready, but we would like to start using it. No problem. KanBo can be installed on premise and can be completely disconnected from the internet and can work behind a firewall. So this is also possible. All the stuff you saw today is possible to do on your prem.
That's great. And now, great distinction too, because it looks and acts the exact same way. So it's actually, if you are planning to eventually move to the cloud, that you will have a seamless experience as you're moving users that are used to working with the on-prem version of this, that install, as you then move over to the cloud, that it's the exact same user experience.
Yes, and we also got it automated. So whenever you decide to go from on-prem to the cloud, we have a scripts and automation mechanism that allows you to move everything. So the documents from SharePoint and everything, and the cards and everything, to the cloud, and the user doesn't actually see the difference. Maybe if he looks closely to the URL. So all the data can be migrated, and it's the same software actually. It's the same build, just the installation package is compiled differently. That's it.
That's great.
All right. So let's switch now to Teams integration. So for that, I will ask Kate to present, and I will continue on talking about this. So I need to.
Hey, Michael, I got one question here, which is from Tom, was asking, how many projects can KanBo support? Since we would have 200 sites, each doing the same project.
200 sites?
So the way I'm interpreting that is that you might have 200 sites. I don't know if this is accessing the same project plan, or linking to it, or if you have 200 different boards, 200 different projects that are all accessing it the same way. But I mean, Kambo can support either scenario.
Yes, I mean, we have tested KanBo with 100,000 accesses. We are using the Azure and the Amazon clouds to simulate this kind of traffic. So it can handle a lot of users and requests.
And I see
on the other hand,
scenario here, Michael, is that you say, so one customer, so 200 locations across the globe, so they each have their own version of the same project, but run at their pace.
All right. So that would be possible if we can set up a so-called SQL replication. That would be then possible. So we are using the SQL replication mechanism for having them all on sync. Otherwise, they would need to connect to a single point.
Okay.
So that would be the case. Right. So now you see the screen of a demo that we have prepared for Teams. And so what we do, we have developed a bot that is also using Lewis, which is the language processing from Microsoft. So we will even be able today to show you that this bot understands, we taught them to understand, let's say, normal human language. I mean, it's not, as you can, maybe not that far as Alexa now, but we're working on that. But what's most important is that you can now you work with KanBo using Teams, and we have a pretty rich possibilities of commands. So obviously you can add KanBo as a tab. You can add the home screen, you can add the board, you can add a card. So whatever suits you the best. So whatever the channel is for. If the channel is for, let's say, a certain issue, like we had the issue with the HP printer, then you will probably want to link or make a tab over the card. But if you have a channel that is actually there for tickets or for the building or for a process, you might be having a tab as a board. And if you just need KanBo as a starting point, you will add it like that. But let's switch then back to conversations, Kate. And then, so what you see here is, first of all, you have to tell the channel what is the KanBo URL. So basically, you have to associate the channel with your installation, because it can be. Basically, you could have an on-prem installation. And if you have an Active Directory federation, then you could even connect this KanBo on-premise with your Teams in the cloud. So this is only to your architecture. So what we did here, you see, we have associated now the KanBo bot with the URL of our KanBo, and now we can start. For example, we can create a card. So maybe Kate, you could show us how to create a card. So first, what you do is you just obviously mention the bot. And then you could, so Kate knows all the features basically by heart. But what you can do is you can ask what you can say. So you can say like add card, for example, and then you just write it like that. So we are now just creating a card called KanBo Webinar, and then we say to board webinar. So you see, the card was created, and let's do one more. Let's assign me as responsible to this card. So I think let's stop there. What I wanted to show you here is that you already saw that this Michael Sobotkiewicz user realized by Teams will also be set in KanBo. Why? Because we are using the same Active Directory infrastructure here. So we are really hooked into the Microsoft world. So now when we switch back to KanBo and we go into this webinar board, you will see a card, Kambo webinar, and you will see that actually I was added to this card, right? So here you see, and this was all done by Kate. So Kate did it actually. So what we can do now is we would like now to subscribe to the stream of this card, because this card we created is related to this channel. So another way to use the bot is to subscribe. Of course, it's okay. Can you please subscribe? And so of course you could also use a connector for that. But it would be the same, let's say the same possibility, but only wrapped as a connector component. So what happened now is we subscribe to the card, and now Kate will go to this card and will create a node, maybe assign a different user, move the card to the next list. So we will create some traffic in the card, and in a couple of seconds we will see how the bot is realizing that and actually pushing all the changes that we do in the card right into the channel. So even if you are not watching KanBo, you will be able to see what is happening with the connected card. Yeah, maybe assign a user, another user. Yeah, you can assign you. Yeah, and then we switch back. So second, can you please click on show details to show everybody? Okay, so this is the stream, actually the history of the cards so far, and then now we switch back to the conversations. And in a couple of seconds, we should be able to see exactly they are popping in. So you see all that was done in the card is now being also posted by the bot inside of this channel. So this is one way we can work with this. And I think what we also realized by writing this component was we need something like an object that we call context. And every time you do something with the bot in KanBo, you can ask the bot, like, please give me your current context. So all actions that you do are then done within the context. So here we ask the bot for the context, and the bot is saying we are now connected to this KanBo with board webinar and to the card KanBo webinar. So whenever I say like now add note or write a comment, this will be done in this context. So this is actually something that was very useful while we were debugging it, and also very useful to the users.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful, because that happens fairly frequently, where you might have all this great information, but you'd like lose the context of, you know, what are we talking about here? I see this, I woke up and there's this conversation happening with people that are 3 time zones ahead of me, but are they, if the entire board is attached to this conversation, you know, what is the context of the most recent comments, and be able just to ask, hey, what's the context? And it points you to the relevant card. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually, so the bot knows where he is actually inside of KanBo, because you can easily say then add another card. Then he will then assume, if you not mention any board, that it will be the webinar board. But if you then say no, add the card to whatever board, then this whatever board will be actually the new context, right? And the card that you just created is the new card that he is actually in. It's like a cursor, mentally to speak. It's a cursor, and you always know where you are. So if you want to do something in a different card, then you have to tell the bot, like, oh, now do it in another card, because by default he will think that he's in this other card. So that's basically the idea. And what I would also like to show off is, for example, Kate, can you ask the bot, can you search for something but use sort of natural language? Oh, for example, project. So these are the results. So you see what cards and what files and what documents inside of SharePoint and what users are matching the project. So if we could switch now back to KanBo and do the same query. So basically here you see the same results presented in a nicer way. We are working on the UI on Teams, but so just to present you that actually you can now use Kambo using text commands and you get pretty the same experience or the same data that you would get when you're using Kambo here. So this is actually our idea how we want to continue, and of course to make the bot much smarter, to be able to answer questions like, for example, what are the most critical cards or tasks for me today? Or what will happen if Chris takes off, gets a holiday next week? So actually things that you would need to spend a lot of time to find out, just with one sentence to the bot, you will get the results and the insights, so you can be much faster in your decision making. And of course, there is a research project running with using the machine learning of Azure to feed it with the card data, and then have some other level of intelligence that we would also like to connect to the bot, so then you can do some predictions and stuff like that. So that's basically what is now, and I just gave you some outline of the future where we are heading. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute here. It's actually this that had, I think you showed part of this. Tom also had a question about he has this project that's 200 different locations. All of them are the same. So he says his projects are like a corporate game room conversion project of all the 200 locations. So that's like surveying the room for existing equipment, measuring and providing suggested changes, and documenting the design, implementing the design, hosting a pre-party, open all the time, kind of all those steps. And he was asking, could he view the status of all 200 projects to see which ones are at the survey phase and which are at the pre-party phase? And my response back was, yeah, you can go in and you can query. You've got that standard process where they're each following those same steps. You could go in and do a query of those projects and find, how many of those are in that still in that survey phase, how many are in the pre-party phase. You'd see then the results come back of all of those sites, those locations are at each one. The roll up at the top of the column there, and that that Kanban list would tell you how many of each. So you could then go into the individual cards and find out, but you also get that roll up, that single view of all of those that are in each of those phases.
Yeah, no, that's pretty standard. But what we also do for the customers is we help them to develop, or we teach them a little bit how to use Power BI. Because if you connect your Power BI to Kambo, then during 1 hour or 2 hours, you can build your own reports that get you this insight that you really want. This was not really possible on premise, because on premise you needed to use the reporting services. It was pretty complex and not so sophisticated. Now with Power BI connecting to the data that you have inside of the Kambo database, you can actually measure the heartbeat of your project. Any project, you can drill it down, vertically, horizontally, whatever slice you need. And once you understand how the data structure is, it's something that you can do yourself. Of course, we assist you, but you will be better off if you just invest some little time in this, and then you can build really something within minutes that satisfies your need for information in a way you need it now. So that's basically where we also will provide some webinars and also some documentation how to do it in order to empower the client himself to do it, because
right.
That's the best way to react to his business needs within hours. That's the idea.
Well, and I know this is, if you have any final kind of points on this, as we're just about out of time here. But what's exciting about this is that is really looking to the future as this matures and as there's more and more capability that are made available through the Microsoft Graph, through that, which is really Microsoft's now becoming the primary API through which you interact with all of the various solutions within Office 365 and across basically all Microsoft products that are enabling Microsoft Graph, adding all of these products and services to that substrate so that all this rich data is accessible. And then you're going to be able to do more and more in-depth automation through bots like the KBot, so that you can then go and ask for project information, details, get it right through this channel, right in context to the work that you're doing, and pull back the results and make it part of that conversation within that stream, where you're doing the work here as part of this conversation. So really powerful stuff.
And Teams is actually, if you are using Teams, let's say, as the engaging phase, where you say, I create a channel and let's talk about something that we want to create. And in a certain point of time, you realize, okay, now there are things that we need to keep, not just in the stream, because the stream just disappears somewhere here, and you need something there like a portfolio, or just start like capturing the ideas and then structuring somehow. This is the point where you say, I need something like Planner, I need something maybe like Trello, and once you outgrow this one, then you will probably need the statuses and all the stuff I showed you today with the possibilities that nothing can be deleted just like that or changed without notice, and you want to have notifications to other users, then you probably are looking for KanBo, even if you don't know that the KanBo is the one. And then even if you started in Planner, or even if you started in Trello, and then you say like, oh my goodness, I need to move, and now all the work, don't worry, we've got a component that just, it's like the ICE in Germany. It brings you from Frankfurt to Berlin without any stops, and then all is migrated, all documents, all cards, all labels, everything is migrated to KanBo, and then you can just, after 50 minutes, continue doing whatever you did here without losing any data. And that's something that is also part of our strategy. We want to give you the features that you realize after using a simple Kanban board, after a week, after a month, then you start missing features, and this is where actually KanBo story begins. That's the idea.
Well, thanks. I'm going to grab back the screen here. I know we've just to wrap up here, and if I get there we go. Michael, thanks a lot for that walkthrough. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to kind of take in, and and certainly I know that folks are probably interested in learning a little bit more about this. So I've got the URL here. There's a number of different ways that you can find out more. And so the first thing is you visit the KanBo site, KAN.bo, not kanbo.com. But you can follow this URL to the trial, and you've got different options even with the trial. So the first thing you can do is that you don't need to install anything. You can go leverage the KanBo sandbox and try it on their cloud infrastructure and all of their test data that's out there. You can go and play with the tool, the full features out in this sandbox environment. You can't do any harm out there, so just go crazy out there, play around with it, check out all the different views with that sample data. Of course, you can download the trial version and run it on your own Office 365 environment, as well as Michael mentioned, your SharePoint on-prem environment. So there's the full license and free trial that's available there. And then finally, if you want to see a more detailed, personalized demo, there's the contact form. There's the URL with Get in Touch, where you can schedule a full demo with Michael and his team. And I know that you guys are happy to do that. You're doing demos all the time, and you're also flying out to meet clients and having kind of on-site sessions where you're demoing and talking very specifics about their environments and their requirements. So all of those things are, no, obviously you can't be everywhere in the world at the same time. But if you'd like to find out more, I highly recommend you go take a look. Again, if you're using Microsoft Teams today, and you can use KanBo today with these features, which I know are coming out soon with the bot and the connectors, so those deeper integrations. I'm excited to get my hands on those things and start playing with them. But if you've got other questions, feel free to reach out to myself or to Michael to ask. I certainly have as a user, have my experience, and I'm happy to answer questions from my perspective. But you can also always reach out to Michael and get the in-depth technical answers to any product questions that you have. And Michael, I really appreciate your time today, and to Kate in the background, turning hitting the levers, turning the knobs in the background. But thanks a lot for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris, for moderating this. It was a pleasure as always, and as you said, I'm open almost 24/7 for questions, ideas. We love what we do, and we are passionate about developing it further.
Thank you very much too.
Thanks a lot. And Kate, hey, you're there. Your voice. Hey.
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and I will talk to you soon. And thanks a lot to everybody that participated.
Bye-bye.